me about the single-player mode.
Well, there's hours and hours of content for you in the single-player mode, and it's divided into two separate components. We've got the campaign mode and the puzzle mode. The campaign mode is probably a good place for people to start if they're unfamiliar with Worms games, or maybe they're experienced players and they just want to see the new features we've implemented, such as the Worms classes, the physics objects, or the dynamic water. There's 32 missions altogether, and that's spread out over the 4 different themes. We'll start you off gently. There's the training missions to get you going, and then by the end of it, we've really upped the ante, and if you're not an experienced Worms player, by the time you get to mission 32, then you never will be. And then we've got the puzzle mode. Now the puzzle mode, it's more about challenges. It's missions with a certain objective. Now that objective could be to get a vital worm that's on the enemy team, or it could be to collect a crate, but you've only got certain items and certain ways to achieve that goal. This is a real strategic side of Worms games. It's going to be a head scratcher, and I think it's really going to excite people when they finally get to finish one of the puzzles. There's 20 of those in total, so there's plenty there to keep people going.
Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How can I beat my friends?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can play against your friends with Worms Revolution. There's local play and online play. Local play, it's the social side of Worms really. That's where you get 3 of your mates round to your house, all 4 of you sit on the sofa, and you can either grab 4 pads or you can get 1 pad and pass it round, and you can enjoy the banter and the fun that goes with playing Worms with people in the room with you. And there's nothing better in local play than seeing the expression on your mates' faces as you drop their last worm into the water. And then you've also got the online mode. In online mode, you can set up a lobby yourself and you can tailor it to whatever settings you like, and then you can invite people, or you can wait for it to fill up, and you can basically take on the best players in the world really. This is where you're going to have improved your skills, because there's some great Worms players out there. Or if you don't really want to mess about setting up a lobby yourself, you can always join one of the lobbies that will be out there, do a search, dive in, and once again see how good you really are when you're up against the best players in the world. So you can play it at home, you can play it online, but either way you can have a great game.
What modes are available to play?
Well, we've got 3 modes that you can choose from to play. We've got the deathmatch mode, the forts mode, and the classic mode. Deathmatch mode is probably the bread and butter mode really in Worms Revolution. It's the one that most people will be familiar with, and maybe the mode that people will play first. With this you can set up a game with 3 other players, or 3 AI combatants if you wish, and you can set up your scheme settings, and then basically you're straight into a match. You're going to be able to use the physics objects, the dynamic water, and make use of the classes, and it's a case of the last worm standing. Secondly, obviously we've got the forts mode like I mentioned. Now the forts mode is probably my favourite mode. What we've got there is similar to deathmatch mode in fact, but the landscape is set into 2 separate forts, one either side with a body of water in between. Now this means that you've got to use a little bit more strategy here, because you can't get directly to the opposing teams. So you might want to use height to your advantage and try and get shots down from above, or you might want to bunker down and maybe do hit and run, dark side tactics essentially. Either way, I think forts mode is probably going to be the one that people get the most fun out of, especially for me. Aside from the fact it looks beautiful as well, I think it's probably one of the most beautiful landscapes we've created, the forts mode. And lastly, we've got the classic mode. Now the classic mode is for the Worms purists. It's for people who have played Worms before and maybe they want to experience that same kind of game. They don't want to have the dynamic water, they don't want to have to mess about with Worms classes, and maybe they don't want the random nature that a physics object might include in the map. So that's all removed, and they can get on with playing Worms classically as it was originally intended. So there's something for everyone really in all the games modes.